Hey there everybody, and welcome back to Creative2xmom Mom. My name is Lee, and today I'm going to be talking about how to start reading aloud to your kids. Now you guys know that I share the books of the month every month, the things that I have read, and in those videos I try to include our read aloud with the kids as well. I will link last month's video down below so you can kind of get an example of what I'm talking about. Recently, I got a couple questions about how to start reading aloud to your kids because it can feel like a really overwhelming thing to do. So today I want to talk about motives behind reading aloud, how to get started, how to pick good books, and just in general, how to enjoy reading aloud with your kids. So the first thing I would suggest is close your eyes and start thinking about what does read aloud time look like to you. Now, if you have heard any sort of podcasts or have listened to a talk in a convention, you're probably thinking of this very peaceful time, everybody gathered around together, listening, the children are quiet, their hands are folded, their backs are very straight as they're listening to mom. Now, open your eyes. Get that idea completely out of your head. That is probably not what your read aloud time is going to look like, especially if you are living in the real world. You're going to have kids that are fidgety, that are antsy. Maybe if you have a variety of ages, you might have some kids that can listen for a really long time, others that just can't. And maybe you have a kid that just needs something to do while they're reading aloud. So get rid of the Pinterest picture perfect example of what you think reading aloud should look like, and know that it's going to look like something different for every different family. Now, in our family, we started out with our kids really young. So read aloud time when the kids were young looked completely different than read aloud time does now. It was a lot shorter, the books were different, the environment was different. It was always like a pre-bed, snuggle up on the couch kind of a moment. Our read aloud time looks very different now because now I have a 12-year-old, a 10-year-old, and a 6-year-old. We do a lot more chapter books. Now, in my home, I like to have us all in one room, in one area. I don't like to have people wandering around for a drink of water or finishing up brushing their teeth, that sort of thing. But it's totally fine with me if they sit down and they sketch while we read, if they do a dot-to-dot book while we read. My kids have those extreme dot-to-dot books that you have seen at Christmas time. I'm okay with that. Now, when they were younger, our read aloud time looked really different. It was a lot shorter. As they've grown older, that's something that we've kind of grown into, and we've realized that some kids like to sit still, some kids don't. And that's okay with me. No reading another book during read aloud, but absolutely keep your hands busy. Some homeschoolers will have building blocks, they'll have Legos. I know my son likes to work on his Rubik's Cube while he listens to a read aloud book. Some of those things you just grow into and you adapt into, and you find what works for your family. So like I said, we have been doing read aloud since my kids were pretty young. Since they were we've always just kind of started and developed this culture of reading in our home. So if you're starting with young ones, I feel like that's the best place to start. If you're starting with older kids, we'll get to that a little bit later. But if you're starting with little ones, I think it's great to have a little bit of time either before bed or before nap. You might just pick up a small picture book like this. Your read aloud time might just look like 2 or 3 minutes as you're doing a picture book with your child. I like to pick up books when we travel that talk about the local geography or the local culture. So I have this one from Alaska. This one is just it's a Christmas tale, Room for a Little One. We loved reading this one out loud at Christmas when the kids were little. So every day before their nap or before bed, I would just sit down with them, snuggle. This might be right after you've nursed your baby, or if you're giving them a bottle, we'd sit down and just read a book together. So just some of my favorite memories were just sitting down and snuggling with the kids before they went to sleep. As they got a little bit older, we moved into things like Dr. Seuss. You cannot go wrong with a Dr. Seuss book. There are Christmas books. There is so much play on words. I find that these are a lot of fun for rhyming. They're a lot of fun for getting into the rhythm of reading together. And you can even use, there's one, Hop on Pop. Hop on Pop is a great one if your child is starting to read. I would split our read aloud time a little bit where I would maybe read a page or two and then my little ones would sound out because there's very few words on the pages of that book. So we would kind of read to each other, which was a fun thing to do. So they got a little bit older. we were gifted some of these VeggieTale books, and these are all based around different character values and things that you might want your children to learn: integrity, honesty, truthfulness, patience, obedience. This one is the tale of two sumos. I'm trying to remember this one specifically, but I can't remember what the character quality is in this one. But we loved these. These were good for that, like, in between maybe first, second, third grade ages. And a lot of them include, this one does not, but a lot of them will include a scripture verse illustrating that character quality at the end. This one had a drawing lesson at the end. So these were a lot of fun to read with my kids as they got older. Now that I've got older kids, one of my motivations for Read Aloud is to continue to get good literature in them. We only have so many hours in the day, and even as a homeschool family, I find that there are a lot of great books out there that I want to share with my kids, but we just don't have time to do it. And I noticed this as well when my kids were in public school, was that I just had a lot of great literature that I wanted to share with them. So now that they're older, we are doing chapter books. A little preview, this will be one of the next chapter books that we will be reading, is Nim's Island. And we just sit down every night after they've brushed their teeth, they've got their pajamas on. Doesn't mean they're necessarily going to bed right off, but this is one of our wind down activities that we do in the evening as we sit down and we read a chapter book out loud. Now in the past, I have also done some history reading because we've done Beautiful Feet in the past, and there is a ton of reading in that curriculum. So for a season of time, our motivation for Read Aloud was to get some of our extra history reading in. But what I really like to focus on is great novels, great literature, and just having that time together with the kids. Now, like I said, if you are starting with older children, one thing that you might do is to pick a book that is slightly under their age range. Most of the time I pick books that is slightly over, so that they can still enjoy them. They're being challenged by the vocabulary, they're being challenged by the characters and the lessons that are happening in the story. If you are just starting out, I would say just go slightly under. Make it silly, make it fun. Go back to these VeggieTale books where you can laugh together. Don't make it too much of a challenge when you're first starting out, because then your kids are going to feel like, oh, this is just an extension of school, whereas for us, part of our motivation is learning to enjoy reading together and learning to enjoy books together. So you don't want to make it drudgery. You don't want to make it so overwhelming in the beginning. I picked up this book the other day, and it's an extension of The Cricket in Times Square, and I realized it's a little bit of a lower grade level than I thought it was going to be, so I would suggest this one. If you're just starting with older kids, this looks like a great one to start as a read aloud. Just read it aloud together. Lots of great pictures, lots of stuff to interact with in this story. Now, if my kids are sitting on the floor and they're building with Legos, I always make sure I turn the story around for them so they can see the picture. Always start just slightly under if you're starting with older kids. Another thing that we have done, if you are looking to squeeze just a little bit more read aloud time into your life, into your homeschool, into your family, is audiobooks. And these can get very expensive. They're quite an investment. So a lot of times I will go to our local library and I will stock up on audiobooks if we're taking a family trip, particularly if we're taking a trip. That's one of the things. Around town, if we don't have them in the car, that's okay, but if we're taking a longer trip, I like to utilize that time to share a great story together. There are so many great books out there that if you don't grab onto those pockets of time, you're going to miss out on them. Now the next question is, where can you find some great books? I have written a post every year outlining our books for the year that we are going to be reading. I also just uploaded a video not that long ago about all of our read alouds for the next homeschool year. So I will link a few of those resources down below for you to just check out. You can always go on to Pinterest, type in your kids' grade level, and you will find tons and tons and tons of reading lists. Like I said, there are so many more books out there than you will ever have time to read. So put on your mom cap and go through them and look at which ones you think will fit your family the best. There are some great books out there that are suggested that I would just say maybe wait till my kids are a little bit older, but for your family, maybe they would work really well. Another great resource is to go into your local library and talk to your librarian. Share with her the ages of your kids, their interests, any sort of particular special situation that your family has going on. Like I said, maybe you have a range of ages. Maybe you have special needs. Maybe you have a kid that you're just starting read alouds with, so you want to go just slightly younger. Librarians are a wealth of information. Even after all the research that I've done and all the reading aloud that we've done over the years, I still go in and learn so much from our local librarians. They know all about the books that are just coming out, as well as the classics, and they always steer me in the right direction. So make sure you talk with them. They have so much information to give you, and you might discover a new favorite book or two. So that is my tips for starting reading aloud with your kids. Leave me a comment down below and let me know what age your children's are, and if you read aloud with your kids, if you want to read aloud with your kids, if this is a topic that you are interested in exploring more in the future. I have a couple of other ideas for videos that I may film if there is any interest. And of course, I hope you guys enjoyed this one, and we'll see you next time. Bye guys.